typical day last month, U.S. motorists used 122 million gallons of leaded gasoline.
What if I told you lighting up a cigarette on a plane was once totally normal? From smoking on airplanes to burning trash in the backyard, the 1960s were a totally different world. Could the normal habits back then be shocking crimes today? Today, we're revealing 7 everyday activities from the 1960s that are now completely illegal. And if you stick around, you'll hear the one thing that used to be everywhere and is now banned worldwide. So, can you imagine lighting a cigarette at 30,000 feet today? It might sound absolutely insane now, but back in the 1960s, smoking on aeroplanes wasn't just illegal, it was expected. It didn't matter if you were on a short hop or a long-haul international flight, cigarettes were everywhere. Even the plane bathrooms had ashtrays built in, just to make sure smokers could get their fix mid-flight. Airlines didn't just tolerate smoking, they catered to it. Some airlines even ran ads boasting about their smoking lounges in the sky. And there was no such thing as a smoking section at first. It was all one big smoking section. If you didn't like it, too bad. But then things started to change. In the 1980s, the science caught up. Flight attendants began speaking out about chronic health issues. Public health advocates pushed for regulation. And in 1988, Congress passed a law banning smoking on domestic flights under 2 hours. A few years later, that expanded to all flights under 6 hours. By 2000, smoking on nearly all US flights was illegal. And today, it's banned on all major commercial airlines across the globe. If people smoked on planes, what else were they doing that would be totally illegal now? Believe it or not, burning your household trash in the backyard was totally normal in the 1960s. People didn't think twice about setting paper plates, plastic wrappers, and leftover food ablaze in a rusty barrel out back. No recycling, no garbage trucks in many areas. You just torched it and moved on. As cities grew and scientists started looking into air pollution, the smoke from backyard fires raised red flags. Big ones. People were literally breathing in poison, and it was drifting into homes, parks, and schools. In response, local governments and state environmental agencies began cracking down. One of the first major bans came from California in 1969. When the San Francisco Bay Area outlawed backyard burning due to worsening smog and respiratory problems. Over the next 2 decades, other states followed suit. By the 1980s, open trash burning was either tightly restricted or completely banned in most parts of the country. They burned their trash out back, but what were they pumping into their cars that was even worse? In the 1960s, nearly every single car ran on leaded gasoline. It was the standard. In fact, tetraethyl lead was added on purpose to help engines run smoother and prevent knocking. Sounds like a win, right? Well, not so fast. Back then, people didn't know, or didn't want to know, how dangerous lead actually was. There were no warning labels, no bans, and no public outcry. Leaded gas had been around since the 1920s, and by the 60s, it was literally everywhere. Kids were walking to school breathing in lead. Adults were sitting in traffic surrounded by it, and no one questioned it. But behind the scenes, scientists were starting to sound the alarm. They discovered that lead wasn't just hanging around outside, it was getting into people's blood, especially children. It could cause brain damage, lower IQ, and even lead to behavioral problems. Basically, it was toxic, and we were pumping it into the sky by the gallon. The US began phasing out leaded gasoline in the 1970s. The big turning point came with the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, which made it illegal to sell leaded gas for on-road vehicles starting January 1, 1996. Within a few years, the average blood levels in American children dropped by over 70%. Air quality improved dramatically, and the streets became just a little safer to breathe on. If every car was spitting out brain-damaging lead, what were they spraying right on their kids? In the 1960s, DDT was everywhere. Sprayed on crops, sprayed on homes, even sprayed directly on kids at the pool to keep bugs away. This insecticide was seen as a miracle solution to control pests like mosquitoes and lice, and no one really questioned it. But then came a book that changed everything. In 1962, biologist Rachel Carson published Silent Spring. She exposed how DDT didn't just kill bugs, it stayed in the environment, climbed the food chain, and caused serious damage to birds, especially eagles and falcons. It made their eggshells so thin that they cracked under the parents' weight. Populations plummeted. People were shocked. The public outcry grew, and by the 1970s, the science was clear. DDT was harming ecosystems, wildlife, and possibly human health. If bug spray could wreck entire ecosystems, what were people unknowingly eating that was just as dangerous? Back in the 1960s, trans fats were everywhere. They were made by partially hydrogenating vegetable oils to create a solid, butter-like fat that was cheaper, had a longer shelf life, and didn't spoil easily. You'd find them in margarine, crackers, donuts, frozen pizzas, and just about every snack aisle in America. At the time, they were marketed as a healthier alternative to saturated fats like butter and lard. Doctors even recommended margarine over butter. Nobody was talking about heart attacks or clogged arteries from trans fats yet. But here's where it gets dark. Studies later proved that artificial trans fats not only raised bad LDL cholesterol, but also lowered good HDL cholesterol. That combo, a heart attack in the making. Over time, scientists linked trans fats to thousands of preventable heart disease deaths every year. After years of mounting evidence, the FDA finally acted. In 2015, they ruled that partially hydrogenated oils, the main source of trans fats, were not generally recognized as safe.
Now the FDA wants to make the ban national.
We're grateful now that nationally the FDA is looking at this, because why should our babies have poison in their food?
Food companies were given 3 years to eliminate them from all products. By June 2018, trans fats were officially banned from use in public production across the US. It marked one of the biggest public health victories in modern food regulation. If dangerous fats were hiding in your snacks, what new distractions were creeping into your car without anyone noticing? Today, it's illegal in most US states to text while driving. Holding your phone behind the wheel, also a no-go in many places. But rewind to the 1960s and none of that even existed. Literally, there were no smartphones, no texting apps, heck, not even basic mobile phones. If someone wanted to call from the car, they needed a bulky built-in car phone or radio system, and that was usually reserved for police or rich executives. Distracted driving just wasn't something lawmakers considered back then. The biggest driving distractions in the 60s were probably tuning the radio or handing snacks to kids in the back seat. But as technology exploded in the 1990s and early 2000s, mobile phones became part of daily life. And unfortunately, part of driving too. At first, people treated it like no big deal. Drivers were dialing numbers, checking emails, even texting, all while cruising down highways. Then the crashes started piling up. Studies showed that texting while driving could be just as dangerous as drunk driving. Eyes off the road for 5 seconds at highway speed, and that's like driving the length of a football field completely blind. The public started to take notice. So did lawmakers. Washington state led the charge, becoming the first to ban texting while driving in 2007. By 2021, 48 states plus DC had laws banning all drivers from sending text messages while operating a vehicle. Most also banned handheld calling, allowing only hands-free options like Bluetooth. If phones in the car became a major hazard, were kids at least safely buckled in the back seat? In the 1960s, there were no mandatory child car seat laws in the US. Parents either held their kids on their laps or let them sit freely in the back. Some used early child seats, but those were designed to give the child a better view, not protect them in a crash. No seat belts, no safety ratings, no crash testing, just sit tight and hope for the best. Automakers didn't prioritize child passenger safety, and government agencies hadn't yet developed standards or legal requirements for child restraints. It wasn't until the 1970s that safety research and public outcry began pushing for change. In 1971, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, issued the first federal standards for car seats. But it wasn't until the 1980s that most states began passing laws requiring their use. Today, every US state has strict child car seat laws, including booster seat requirements for other children. Car seats are crash tested, rated and mandatory by law. Because the science is undeniable. They save lives. These were all things people did every day in the 1960s, and nobody batted an eye. But if you tried to do them today, you'd be hit with fines, lawsuits, or maybe even jail time. If you've ever seen someone do one of these things today, drop it in the comments. We want to hear your stories.